ॐ नमः श्रीयतिराजाय विवेकानन्दसूरये सच्चित्सुखस्वरूपाय स्वामिने तापहारिणे. My humble salutations to him who is the best among the ascetics and who is equal to hundreds or thousands of suns in his knowledge, who is absolute existence, consciousness, bliss absolute in his nature, who has descended on this earth to redeem all our difficulties, to remove all our miseries or sorrows. To such Swami Vivekananda, my humble salutations or prostrations. Dear devotees, we were discussing Karma Yoga, the path of selfless action. It is one of the path by which one can attain God. This is the main contribution of Swami Vivekananda, or one of the main contribution of Swami Vivekananda in the modern days. Earlier, in the traditional philosophy, by Karma Yoga, one can attain purification of mind. That's all. It was an never independent way or path by which one could have self realization. But Swami Vivekananda showed how, by practicing Karma Yoga, selfless action, one can reach God, how it can act as an independent means, which is very important. And he also beautifully he showed that what is the role of karma, what is the effect of karma in one's own life, and also at the level of society or country or civilization. Today, I'll be discussing three or four main points. One is, what is this definition of pravrutti and nivrutti? The second is, unselfishness is God. What does it mean? Non attachment or detachment is the self abnegation, Swami Vivekananda says in this particular chapter. What is it and how to attain it? And the fourth important point is, the world is good or bad, or it is a mixture of it. And probably I will touch a point on what is life. So these are the 4 or 5 points I would like to cover in today's lecture. Adi Shankaracharya, the great world renowned philosopher who gave systematic representation of the non dualistic philosophy, he comes from India. He was the greatest philosopher, greatest saint, and he is known as the incarnation of Lord Shiva himself. Once, Kapalika means a person, a spiritual aspirant who belongs to the sect by name called Kapalika. Mostly they are the spirit worshippers, and they used to sacrifice animals and sacrifice human beings for getting occult powers. So one of the person who belonged to this sect, Kapalika sect, he saw Adi Shankaracharya, he understood. He's a great person who is a spiritual person and who has led the purest life, celibate life. Such a person, if he is sacrificed, then he will get lot of occult powers. Then that Kapalika approaches Adi Shankaracharya and he says, look, I want some special occult power. For that, if I sacrifice you for the demigods, then I will get that occult powers. Why don't you help me to get that power? Now imagine, he's not an ordinary person, Adi Shankaracharya, like you and me. He was the greatest saint. And he has given the beautiful logical representation of the non dualistic philosophy to the entire world. Thousands of people got redeemed by him. Though he is such a person of such caliber, he never said, "See, I'm a very important person. By sacrificing me, you may get only you the power, you get the occult power by which you are only benefited. But by my life, by my staying, thousands of people are getting benefited and they will get benefit in future time. So I can't, sorry." He could have said, but Adi Shankaracharya said, "Is it? By this body, if you are going to get some benefit, come, let us go." And he started moving silently. Though there are disciples were there, his disciples, he never told them. Silently, secretly, he left along with Kapalikas. One of his disciple came to know, and he prayed for Lord Narsimha, and Narsimha in the form of lion and the human body mixed. Uh, Narsimha came in the form of lion and he killed this Kapalika. And that's how Adi Shankaracharya's life was spared. Otherwise, probably Adi Shankaracharya would have been sacrificed by this Kapalika for his selfish end. Now, the point which we have to understand here is detachment, self abnegation, unselfishness. So, why these people are so great? Why these people were able to move the world? Why the whole world, everyone, even after 1400 years, still we are following him, the great person Adi Shankaracharya, because of unselfishness, because of his self abnegation, because of his control of mind, because of his purity. All these things comes from one word, you can say unselfishness. Though is the greatest gnani, knowledgeable person or a wise person, a philosopher, at the same time he was also the greatest karma yogi. That is the reason he was ready to sacrifice his life just for a person. This is the one of the best possible beautiful example for unselfishness or the self abnegation. Now I said, in what is pravrutti? Pravrutti means revolving towards. Revolving towards what? Revolving towards the world. Means one who is selfish, he or she struggles to get power, position, name, fame, wealth, all the pleasurable things. He or she thinks only about himself or herself, I and mine, me and mine, I and me, or me and mine. So this is what pravrutti. Mostly we are all people belong to this category, selfish people. Then do you think, Swami, then is it wrong? No, I'm not saying that it is wrong, but this is what we are falling under this category. From this pravrutti, we have to transfer ourselves. We have to uplift ourselves to nivrutti. What is nivrutti? Pravrutti is revolving towards, and the nivrutti is revolving away. Revolving away from the world. Oh, that means we have to become monks or nuns? No. Revolving away means revolving away from the selfishness, revolving away for the desire for pleasurable things, revolving away from selfishness, revolving away for me and mine instead of we and us. We can tell, isn't it? That's what we have to do this. From Tavrutti to Nivrutti, we have to travel and we have to uplift. For that, Karma Yoga helps. And even Swami Vivekananda tells for morality and religion, this unselfishness can be the best base. You know. Now Swami Vivekananda is telling that unselfishness is God. And unselfishness is more paying, but people do not have patience to practice it. Why unselfishness is God? The question comes. So Vivekananda says, by practicing the bhakti yoga, the path of love or devotion, what do a person get? He tries to see, or he will be able to see the God or the divine principle or the Almighty everywhere, including in Himself. So you'll be able to see the God everywhere from the path of devotee. I mean, the devotee who takes the path of devotion. Then, what about Gnani? The Gnani understands the self, the consciousness, Purusha, or the Atman, and he sees that the same, the divine principle, the consciousness principle is pervaded everything, and consciousness alone exists. Atman, Brahman, we say. And when this Karma Yogi, because of his unselfishness, because of his self abnegation, the I, the pseudo ego I, me, mine, it goes away and it gets embrace the whole humanity, and we ask when it comes what happens. That is what God is, isn't it? A bhakta sees God everywhere, the gnani sees Atman or Brahman everywhere, and the karma yogi also. Because of his self abnegation, because of his unselfishness, the pseudo ego or the limited I gets expanded and it becomes universal ego. Once it becomes universal I, then I, not you or thou, it becomes. So, unselfishness is God. Why Swami Vivekananda is saying logically, rationally, philosophically, we can understand here very clearly. Why? Because that universal principle is understood, experienced. Instead of thinking always me and mine, we think of for the every being in this creature. I will embrace the whole world. That's what we saw in the life of Jesus Christ. That's what we see in the life of Lord Buddha. In all the great people's life we see, they all love the entire humankind, sinners and saints alike. Why? Because of this unselfishness. So that's why Swami Vivekananda says God is nothing but unselfishness. God represents unselfishness. World represents selfishness. Our selfishness represents world. Unselfish represents God. That's why God is not the world or the world is not God. So from this point also, God and world both are two different things, are distinct things. One, some philosophers argue. He gives. Now, what is the effect of Karma Yoga? Swami Vivekananda tells the main effect of work done for others is to purify ourselves. By means of the constant effort to do good to others, we are trying to forget ourselves. This forgetfulness of self is the one great lesson we have to learn in life. That means what? By constantly practicing Karma Yoga, what happens? Purification of mind is achieved. When purification of mind is achieved, what happens? The selfishness dies and unselfishness creeps in. When unselfishness comes, what happens? Then we forget ourselves, our smaller self, our pseudo ego. Then we think the entire world and every being and every creature is ours. That is what unselfishness. So when we attain unselfishness means we are attaining God or we attained God. So here we understand very clearly, philosophically, rationally again, that by practicing karma yoga, how one can attain God or how one can reach the God. So that's why Swami Vivekananda says, Thy will be done and keeps nothing to himself. That is self abnegation. The philosopher, with his knowledge, seems that the seeming self is a delusion and easily gives it up. It is self abnegation. So, karma, bhakti, and gnana all meet here, and this is what meant by all the great preachers of ancient times when they taught that God is not the world. There is one thing which is the world and another which is God. And this distinction is very true. What they mean by world is selfishness and unselfishness is God. One may leave on throne, etc. He says. So, why God and world is two different things? Swami Vivekananda is giving a rational explanation. Other than that, Swami Vivekananda is telling how even the karma yogi reaches the same destiny or the goal where the bhakti yogi or the Gnana Yogi reaches has been very clearly told by Swami Vivekananda. Now, one more question may come. Swamiji, if we have to be spiritual people, if we have to be spiritual, should we renounce the world? Sri Ramakrishna tells beautifully, you need not to renounce the world, renounce the worldliness. Everyone need not to renounce the world, but renounce the worldliness. How to understand? The boat can be in the water. The boat has to be in the water, but the water should not be in the. I mean, the water should not be in the boat. If the water enters the boat, then boat will sink, isn't it? So similarly, if I am living in the world, there is no problem, but the world should not live in me. Means the worldliness should not be in me. So same thing, Swami Vivekananda is saying that. Karma Yoga teaches do not give up the world, live in the world, imbibe its influences as much as you can, but it be for your own enjoyment's sake, work not at all. Means you be in the world, you work for the world, everything, you accept everything, but just don't keep on working for your own enjoyment, for your own selfishness. We all work for ourselves, for our name and fame, power, position, money, all these things, fine, but don't limit yourself. Work for the betterment of the society also. That's what Swami Vivekananda is saying. You can be in the world, you can work, you can do whatever you want, never mind, but don't be selfish, try to be unselfish. So by being a karma yogi, one the beautiful positive point is you need not to renounce the world. You can be in the world, but renounce the selfishness, renounce the worldliness. That has been Swami Vivekananda is telling very clearly. Now, how to attain it? Living in the world and but not getting attached to it. How it is? It is just detachment. Detachment is the means. Live in the world, but don't attach to the world or worldly things. That's what. And how it is possible? That is by sheer detachment. And he gives the example from his master's teaching, that is, live like a housemaid. At least in Europe, probably you may not find this. In India, you will find such people. Housemates, they work, they clean, they mop the floor, and they wash the utensils, all things they do. And in their master's house, if their children are there, kids are there, they play with them, they give a bath, they make up, they do clothes and they do all makeup and all. And many times they say, oh, my Rama, my Krishna, my child, my child. But in her heart of heart, she will be knowing that this fellow is my master's child. He's a rich person. He or she, the kid is a rich person. It doesn't belong to me. But she takes care of the child kid so nicely with all love, affection, etc., etc. But in the heart of heart, the housemaid will be knowing that this kid doesn't belong to him or her. Whereas her children is living in the thatched hut in the village or in the somewhere in the slums or wherever. So like that, you be in the house, you be in the world, you do all your duties, you do all your responsibilities towards your family members and all. But in the heart of heart, you should know that the world is a moral gymnasium where we have come ourselves to make straw. So you don't belong to anyone and no one belong to you. You belong to only God, probably. So that detachment, if you can practice, then even if you are in the midst, you are living in the world, then world will not shake you, world will not trouble you. That is the power of detachment. So Vivekananda is saying, so the detachment is the means to practice karma yoga. And one more, Swami Vivekananda is telling that be a witness. Be a witness. Same thing beautifully we can see in the life of Rama, Krishna, Ramakrishna, Buddha, and all. Okay, we'll take a life story of Buddha. Buddha was sitting under a tree and he gave a beautiful sermon. Thousands of disciples were hearing his sermon. They all felt blessed by hearing the wonderful sermon of Lord Buddha. Just he finished his sermon, and disciples one by one started getting up, paying their respects, and they were just leaving to their respective places. A guy comes and he starts abusing Lord Buddha with the best possible foul words, foul language he was using. He was abusing very badly. Oh, you are a rogue, you are a cheater, you are doing some black magic on the people, you are mesmerizing on the people and all. They are becoming monks, it's all nonsense, and you people are cheaters, blah, blah. So many, he was very strongly was abusing Lord Buddha. But Lord Buddha was not perturbed, just he was keeping quiet. But whereas the disciples were getting furious. Why? Because for no reason his guru has been abused by this rogue. They wanted to probably beat him black and blue because his guru kept quiet. His guru didn't say anything. So, out of respect towards guru, these disciples were keeping quiet externally, but internally they were fuming with all anger. We should beat him. Who is this guy? Who is this scoundrel? Like this fellow go. He continued for 5, 10, 15, 20 minutes, but Buddha's no reaction. Then, after some time, this fellow got annoyed. He said, Buddha, are you not understanding my language? Buddha said, yes, I'm understanding. Then I'm using one of the best possible foul language and I'm abusing you. I'm scolding you, but you were keeping quiet. You didn't utter even a sentence. What makes you to keep quiet like this? What type of person you are? Then Buddha said, look, you give 5 euros. Of course, I'm saying because in Europe, euros, in India, it was rupees. 5 rupees or 5 euros. You wanted to give me or you wish to give me. I said, no, I will not take. Then the 5 euros with whom it will be? Then that fellow said, it will be with me only. Then the Lord Buddha laughingly, smilingly said, same thing with your words. Means whatever the abusive language or the words you wanted to give to me, I didn't receive, so it is in with you only. So Buddha was witness when this fellow was using all the abusive language. He never received it. He never received it, so Buddha was not perturbed. Whereas his disciples, they didn't have so much mental maturity, so much spiritual maturity. As a result, they were getting fumed, or they were getting angry. If the given chance, probably they would have bet this fellow black and blue because they were reacting. They allowed all that fellow's words. But whereas Buddha never allowed that words, and he was a just witness. And someone comes and praises again, people were giving, oh, you're such a great person, he has understood the greatness of our teacher Lord Buddha. But Buddha kept quiet. Why? Again, there was he didn't accept it, or he didn't allow to go all that words inside his mind or inside his body. So it is a witness, Sakshi Baba. If we can practice this witness, if we can practice this Sakshi Baba, then we can live the blissful life. It is not the life of insensitivity. Rather, it is a life of bliss, life of fullest possible happiness. That's what Swami Vivekananda is saying that. So, to work properly, therefore, you have first to give up the idea of attachment. Secondly, do not mix in the fray. Hold yourself as a witness and go on working. One is detachment, the other is witness. If these two things, if you can practice, then you can be the best karma yogi and you can live the happiest life, blissful life in the given circumstances. People may not change, world will not change, situations may not change, but you can be happy. That's a beauty of karma yoga. Now, this is all easy to say. It is all nice to hear. Oh, here is a secret. How I can lead the happiest life by practicing detachment and by practicing witness. Fine. Then what happens to the world? You may think, isn't it? So Vivekananda is saying that it is a weakness to say that the world is depending on me. Without me, what will happen to the world? We think that nothing is going to happen without you in the world. Whether you are there or not, there is not much change in the world. So don't think that the world is depending on you. Only the weak-minded people, they think that without them, the world will not run. For example, I am here in Vedanta society. Oh, if I am not there, what will happen to Vedanta society? Nothing will happen. So many monks were there, 2 monks were there, and now I am here. And after my Going again, some other monk will come and the ashrama will run, the Vedanta society will run, nothing will happen. So don't be foolish that without me, Air Vedanta society cannot run. If you are thinking, you are a weak minded fellow, and it is fallacy to think. That's what Swami Vivekananda is saying. So it is, we have to educate ourselves. The world is a moral gymnasium. We have to work and to become strong. And again, one more point, very important point, Swamiji is telling that. The science is telling the world is for our enjoyment. It is not so. The world is for our emancipation, not for our enjoyment. The world is for learning lessons. The world is not for enjoyment. This is where the science is doing mistake. The trees are there, forests are there, water is there, animals are there. Enjoy nicely. That is for you. The whole creation is for human being. That's what science says, and some religions also they say, scriptures also say it is wrong. The whole world is for your not enjoyment, it is for your emancipation. It is a stage where you live and you work and you get liberated from these clutches of bondage or from this samsara chakra, cycle of samsara, that is birth and death. So, this is the difference between science and philosophy. Of course, philosophy is also a science, spiritual science, whereas the science is materialistic science. So, this is the fundamental difference between both of them. The world is not for enjoyment, rather, the world is for education and the world is for emancipation. Now, again, Swami Vivekananda is telling that then how to achieve it? This witness and the detachment. Swami Vivekananda is saying that you should have a control over your mind. One is a purity, you can say, the other is control over the mind. The moment you have control over the mind, this detachment, unselfishness, or witness, all these things, it is easy to practice. So, having a control over the mind is very, very important for all of our life, either externally or internal life, and even for materialistic life and even for spiritual life. Control of the mind is very much required. It is the basic thing in life. If you have a control over the mind, your meditation happens well, your study happens well, anything you can do. Same thing in your materialistic life. You want to work, you want to study, you want to learn, whatever. If you have got a control over the mind, you are the master of yourself and you can do anything and everything at your will. Now, Swami Vivekananda again he says that what about the world? Whether the world is good, whether the world is bad, or whether the world is mixture. We all think that we should all work, every one of us, we should work. Why? To create the perfect world. To create the perfect world, happiest world. Swami Vivekananda says it is an utopia. It is wrong understanding. It is just hypothetical argument. The world was never perfect. The world is never perfect. The world will be never perfect. The world is a dog style. So, to understand this, to have a conviction, proper conviction, strong conviction, one has to work in a right attitude, right work with right attitude. That's what, when purification of mind happens, what happens? That's what happens. So initially for a sadhaka, he tells that we should take a stand. The world is a mixture of good, bad, right, wrong, happiness, misery, all these things. And when we have a control over mind, when our mind is completely purified, when you have got a self mastery over the world, then we will understand that the world is very arranged in very harmonious way. Whatever we are saying, good, bad, right, wrong, happiness, unhappiness, everything keeps on changing. When we progress, when our perceptions change, things change. But whereas when the person is completely purified, when his mind is purified, one who has got complete control over his mind, for him, the world is completely with goodness, or the world is wonderful. That's what Swami Vivekananda is saying. So, one who has got a control over the mind and one who has got a self mastery over his mind, then for him, the world will be happiest place. If someone is saying that the world is misery, the world is a misery, means that means he doesn't have a control over the mind. Just to remove the detachment, we may say. But initially, for sadhaka, for spiritual aspirant, we should understand the world is a mixture. Then slowly, slowly, when we get a purification of the mind, when we progress in our spiritual life, when we have a control over our mind, we understand that the world is with full of happiness and the world is harmoniously arranged. The world or the creation, God's creation, has its own plans, but we are not able to understand that. We have to understand very clearly, according to Swami Vivekananda. And again, witness we spoke, and how we can live the unperturbed life in the midst of so many people. We may get this question. For that, Swami Vivekananda himself explains by narrating a story. This is a story of Shuka Maharshi. Shuka Maharshi was one of the greatest saint who taught Bhagavatam, the life of Krishna, Lord Krishna, to Parikshit, the king Parikshit. And the Shuka was a born Brahmagnani, and he was a son of great sage called Vyasa. Vyasa taught him the Upanishads or Vedanta, etc., from his childhood days itself, and he learnt in no time, and he became Brahmagnani in the when in his very young days, or even as when he was a small boy. After the completion of education, then Vyasa said, "Look, I have done my part. You go to King Janaka and learn the few chapters, leftover chapters, and you become the Brahmagnani, or you attain that Brahmagnana." Meaning, attaining Brahmagnana is removing the ignorance. That's all we can say. As his father instructed, father and guru, the Shuka Maharshi went to king's court. King Janaka, he had got already information, so he had made all the arrangements. When he approached the palace, then the Shuka was given a seat, but he was not asked, or he was never inquired. He was not, no one bothered about him. 3 days, just he was sitting in front of the gate of the palace, no one bothered. And this fellow is already spiritually elevated, and he was the greatest Brahmagnani at that time, and he was the son of greatest sage, one of the greatest sage, Vyasa, but still no one paid any attention to him. They didn't ask for even probably food also, but he was keeping quiet himself because King Janaka had given instructions. Then Shuka Maharshi, in an unperturbed manner, just he was sitting for 3 days. After third day, finishing, then ministers, chief in commander, and so many people, they came with a great pomp and show, and they welcomed with all great pomp and show the Shuka Maharshi. And they were taken into the palace chambers, and best royal treatment was given. So much milk bath or scented waters bath they were given, best food, best fruits, all things were offered for him. All the best arrangements was given, just like a king. Whatever the royal treatment they gave, similar fashion was given even to the Shuka Maharshi for a week. Then probably if same thing would happen for us, we would have said, "Oh, now these people have understood who I am, so that's why they are doing all that." When these 3 days, when there was no attention was given to the Shuka, he didn't get perturbed, he didn't feel annoyed, he didn't get angry, he didn't curse anyone, he kept quiet as if nothing happened. Similarly, 1 week he got a royal treatment, his ego was not blotted. He never felt anything, "I'm great, so now these people have understood and they're doing something." But he kept quiet. Then after this, then after a week, the Shuka Maharshi was called into the palace. King Janaka and all the officers were sitting in the court. Then King Janaka offered his respects and he asked, "My dear, why did you come here?" Then Shuka said, "Look, my father has instructed me to learn few chapters of Brahmagnana or to complete my education, so I have come here." The King Janaka said, "Okay, is it?" Then he gave a bowl, which is it is filled with full of oil, with its full brim. Even if you little shake, it will fall. Then King Janaka gave that vessel with the oil, and he said, "Now you make 7 rounds in this court." Then he was making. Then there were talking was going on, and dancers were making dances, and the musicians were playing the drums, and they were singing. So much sound was happening, and during this time, the Shuka was asked to go 7 rounds in this court, in the palace court. He finished 7 rounds, and not a single drop of the oil was spilled over on the ground. Then the king Janaka said, my dear, already you attained Brahmagnana. There is nothing new I can teach. Whatever your father has started is completed, and you have completed your education. If I start teaching anything, then it will be only revision or repetition. How? Because he didn't spill over any oil. That's why that is the indication for Brahmagnana. So if I can maintain that so that I will also attain Brahmagnana, that means here what should we understand, that his mind was not shaken, his mind was not perturbed. When 3 days he was not given any heed attention, he kept quiet in equanimous mind. When 1 week all the royal treatment was given, again he was not perturbed, he was happy. Second. And now so much dance, instruments, and so many things are going. When he was asked to go, just he concentrated on the vessel, and he did 7 rounds, and his mind was not perturbed. His concentration was not perturbed. For whom it can happen? For the person of study wisdom, sthita prajna only, or for Brahmagnani, a person who has got study wisdom, for such person only can happen this. So that's why King Janaka said, oh Shuka Maharshi, already you are the Brahmagnani. I have nothing to teach. So when you attain the study wisdom, what will happen? So this, because of the detachment, your mind is unperturbed. You will lead the happiest life, blissful life. And that stage is achieved by detachment and the witness, according to Swami Vivekananda. So now, Swami Vivekananda, as I told, control of mind is very, very important. He tells that the man has practiced control over himself, cannot be acted upon by anything outside. There is no more slavery for him. His mind has become free. Such a man alone is fit to live in the world. How can I live the happiest life? How can I have happiest life in the world? We all speak that. Now, Swami Vivekananda is telling that one should have a self mastery. One should have a control over the mind. If you have a control over the mind, what happens? Then you will be, the world will not shake you. The people cannot disturb you. The situations cannot disturb you. Why? Because when you have control over your mind, then you will be have a self mastery, and you will be knowing what to allow and what not to allow, how much to react, what to react, where to react, and when to shut mouth or when to keep quiet. Then nothing can shake you. So how one can live happily in the given circumstances with the given people or surroundings. Here Swami Vivekananda is saying, one who has got the control over the mind, self-control or self-mastery, he can live the happiest life. And that perfection is attained by Karma Yoga. Swami Vivekananda is telling very clearly. And for this, Swami Vivekananda is telling, you have to hear these ideas again and again. Detachment, witness, role of karma yoga, emancipation, these things again and again you hear, Shrotavya, then Mantavya. You have to reflect, just like the cows, they swallow whatever they get green, they swallow it, and afterwards again they bring back and they munch it. Nicely they munch, cutting. They munch it and again they swallow it. So now you are hearing this Karma Yoga lecture from me, fine. Once you heard, afterwards you have to reflect upon. You have to think again and again. You have to cogitate again and again, and you have to understand the deep inner meanings in all these things. And in a formula way only I'm also able to give here because of the time. And you have to reflect upon, again you have to think, reflect upon it. Then the third, then mantavya, then nididhya, you should meditate. You should reflect upon this every idea, unselfishness, detachment, perfection, emancipation, self-abnegation, unselfishness. These are the keywords which is in Swami Vivekananda's Karma Yoga. So you have to meditate, and you have to understand, and you have to put into practice. Now the question may come for all of you, why should we do all these things? So Vivekananda says, because by hearing, by intellectual idea, by intellectual conviction, what happens? It gives feeling, yes, I should do, I should practice. Oh, how can I live happily in the life I was searching for? Here is a answer for that. One is having a control over the mind, self-abnegation, detachment, unselfishness, all these things. So Vivekananda said, the moment you understand, you get a feeling that I should practice. And this feeling results slowly willing. I should try to practice, I should try to practice. And you try to practice and you will fail. And you say, no, I need more willpower, with concentration, will, detachment, all these things. And willpower, if it's increased, then when you put into practice, then you will be able to attain or achieve emancipation or self-realization or God realization or self-application in karma yoga. So that's why Swami Vivekananda is saying we should listen these things again and again. We should reflect upon these things. We should meditate upon these things, and that will be easy for us to put into practice. And one more, Swami Vivekananda brings a beautiful statement again here that whatever you hear, whatever the teacher teaches, they're all only suggestions for you. You have to receive it and you have to work for it. Just like you take an horse near the water source, you may push its head in the in water source. At the most, you can pour some water into the horse mouth, but it has to be, the horse has to swallow it and it has to digest. You cannot do it. If someone, if you are hungry, I cannot eat, and by eating, if I eat, your hungry is not taken care. Your hungry is not quenched, isn't it? If you are hungry, you have to eat, isn't it? So similarly, Swami Vivekananda is saying that even work means it is not only physical work. Action means it is not physical action. When you hear all these ideas, the thick veil of ignorance is been removed. The ideas gets cleared. You get knowledge. You don't get knowledge. Actually, only your ignorance is removed. For that, we have to put practice. Means hearing, thinking again and again these ideas. So knowledge is internal in nature. No knowledge comes from outside. The whatever you hear from the teachers or from the anyone, it is only suggestions from Vivekananda is saying. So omniscient, self is omniscient, Atman is omniscient, Brahman is omniscient. The self luminous and all we say, isn't it? So here Swami Vivekananda is giving idea. I mean, it's clearing our this concept how it is, because knowledge is internal in nature. It only when we hear the things from outside, it tries to remove the thick veil of ignorance. When I know something means what? The ignorance or delusion or doubt has been removed. And Swami Vivekananda's one more contribution is even an atheist can be the karma yogin. You may go to church, you need not to go to church. You may go to mosque, you need not to go to mosque. You may go to temple or a monastery, you may need not to go to monastery. You are a spiritual person or you are a materialistic person. You believe in God, you may not believe in God. Fine, but even by practicing karma yoga, one can attain self abnegation, one can attain the highest purity, highest control over the mind. So, Vivekananda's one more contribution is even the atheist, agnostic, even all of them also can practice karma yoga. That's what Swami Vivekananda is telling. And here says that the yogas of work, of wisdom, that is Jnana Yoga, and of devotion, Bhakti Yoga, are all capable of serving as direct and independent means for the attainment of moksha. Fools alone say that work and philosophy are different, but not the learned. So only fool people are saying that Jnana Yoga and Karma Yoga are different, and Karma Yoga is supporting and it is not independent means to salvation. They say it is only fool people, but the learned people they never say. That's what Swami Vivekananda is telling again and again. And what is that? By practicing Karma Yoga, how do I get that moksha? Here, Swami Vivekananda is saying that, but because of unselfishness or because of detachment. Because of that unselfishness and because of the detachment, what happens? Self abnegation is achieved. Means my little ego, my pseudo ego, my little personality has been removed, and I get universal personality, universal mind, universal I will be able to reach or attain. Then that's what we say God. By individuality means what? Individuality means indivisibility. Individuality means indivisibility, and that indivisibility is not consciousness or Atman or Brahman or God. But when we say individuality means I am individual, I have got some traits. That is what individuality we say, we feel. But no, individuality means the meaning is indivisibility. And what is that indivisibility? Self, consciousness, Atman or Brahman. And how is that attained? Through detachment and through witness, and by that you will attain unselfishness. The unselfishness is self abnegation. That is the aim of karma yoga. And once you are unselfish, then you get freedom. You are a free person. So, what is that freedom? What is the nature of freedom has been explained by Swami Vivekananda in the next lecture. Then, by the grace of Swami Vivekananda and Sri Ramakrishna, we shall try to see that what is freedom in our next class. And some of the aspirants were saying, Swamiji, when you are taking class in the YouTube, we don't have a way or chance to ask our questions. So I would like to mention you, if any one of you have got any questions, you can type, and by seeing that, and by seeing and by reading them, I will be able to answer either in this class or in the next class also. Of course, Aprokshanubhuti, when I do it in a Zoom in a Thursday between 7 and 8. If anyone is interested there, they can ask not only on that particular subject, on any spiritual matters, on God, or in anything on Vedanta, or anything you can ask there also. Or otherwise, here also you can type, and I shall try to answer. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Tat Sat. Sri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu.